Welcome to the Wisconsinbly podcast. Today we are talking beat 'em ups with Dave.
Hey.
And we're talking about Super Nintendo beat 'em ups in general. So there's plenty of good ones on Sega. The original Nintendo has a few.
Yeah.
We're just going to focus purely on the Super Nintendo ones today.
It's a good system for it.
Yeah, it's a good system, and honestly, I didn't realize how many there were until we kind of got started with this, and then, we're only going to cover a handful today.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of others that we're not going to cover, so if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, why aren't they talking about it? Well, you know what? There are 700-something games for Super Nintendo, so we will get around to it when we do. So
yeah.
We will have a follow-up at some point to cover the rest, but for today, Dave, which one do you want to start with?
Yeah, let's start with The Peacekeepers.
Cool.
Otherwise known as part of the Rushing Beat trilogy in Japan.
And what are the two American names or games that are part of that trilogy?
That's Rival Turf and Brawl Brothers, which I'd have to play them again. I don't know how good of a job they did tying them together in the U.S. I don't think they're officially a trilogy.
Rival Turf, I remember I've played before and I didn't think much of it.
Yeah.
The other one I have, but I don't know if I really sat down and played it.
I believe they're all developed and published by Jalico, but I think this is the one that stands out the most. But I don't think they were necessarily made with the same engine or all the same details.
Yeah, and Peacekeepers is a game that I've had for a while, and I remember the first time I played it, I actually really didn't like it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sat down recently in preparation for this, and I gotta say, it's not top tier, because of course, we have Turtles in Time. I mean, there are levels to beat 'em ups,
mm-hmm.
but I would say it's a lot better than I thought going back into it. So
I warmed up to it the more I played it.
Yeah. So what are your initial thoughts? I mean, as far as beat 'em up goes, we're only going to be able to say that much about most of these. I mean, some of them are a little different. Some have a different combat system. I mean, for the most part, you're going level to level. You're punching people in the face. I mean, that's essentially what a beat 'em up game is. There's usually not 10 minutes to say about each game, but what did you think about it?
My initial thoughts were whistling wind and a tumbleweed rolling along. Yeah. Yes, because there's no soundtrack initially. Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of music at the beginning in the menu, and then there's just each stage has just rushing wind. I think one was a harbor sound or rain or whatever. It's all just background noise.
It's just noise.
Yeah, there's sound effects, but there's no music. Which my favorite beat 'em ups are things like on the Streets of Rage on the Genesis, where it has some of the best music ever, and it just drives the action.
You can play Streets of Rage just for the music and just set down the controller and enjoy the game.
Yeah, and other games like Final Fight are made by their music. And this is just none.
So I have to cut you off, Dave. And I know there will be some listeners that are just banging their head against their speakers this is Dave, guys, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah. There is music in the game.
Yeah.
You have to enable it in the options.
That explains it.
So there's two option settings. You normally think it's stereo and mono.
Yeah.
But the option settings under music is actually basically ambient noise or actual music.
Yeah, because I remember setting it to stereo thinking, why would it be mono by default?
Right.
And I didn't notice that. And wow, that is a weird default setting.
It's BD something and BD something else.
Yeah.
Is the two settings for music.
Wow.
So you didn't play this with music at all, right?
Nope.
No. What I gotta say, it's actually got a pretty good soundtrack.
Well, I have to go and try that. I actually warmed up to it, like I said, after I got over the bad music, because it has other things I like about it.
Yeah, I remember the first time I put it in, same thing like you. I'm just what is this?
Yeah.
Why is, I thought my cartridge is broken.
Yeah.
And I just spent $40 or whatever it went for at the time. I'm like, man, do I take this back? Is this, what? I've never heard this in a game before.
Yeah.
And then I did some research online. It's for some reason they thought that was the good default thing to leave in.
Well, it's like an art house brawler, right? It's like you're in the middle of a movie or something, because it's all dramatic. My sister was kidnapped, or my friend was mutated, or whatever.
It was actually quite an interesting story there.
Yeah.
And then when you play the game, you just listen to ambient noise, and you're like, well, this sucks. I don't want to play this shit anymore.
Yeah.
But yes, there is a full soundtrack, and it's actually pretty damn good.
But as we said, I think it was developed and published by Jalico in December, I think, 93 in Japan, and March 94 in the US.
It's pretty late.
Pretty late, yeah. I mean, the box art is pretty similar for both. A little more anime inspired maybe in Japan, but same characters, same kind of thing.
Yeah, and there are a lot of characters in the game. What are there to start out with? Four.
Yeah, there's the Echo.
There's not Dr. Dre.
Right.
There's not Martin Sheen.
Yeah.
There's not Nev Campbell.
Yeah, and then the goofy, huge wrestler, useless guy.
What did he look like?
I don't remember if there's a certain guy that he reminded me of.
I can't
There are
remember.
wrestlers later in the game where I was like, oh, that's the Steiner brothers.
Yes, there are like legitimately the Steiner brothers as bosses in the game, which is hilarious.
I didn't play I played all 4 of them briefly through like the first stage or so, and the big wrestler guy, I was like, yeah, he sucks. He's
by the way,
worst.
their tag team move is the Doomsday Device.
Oh yeah,
from the Road Warriors, and
I bet.
Yeah. But also you can unlock Norton, which is not Dwight from The Office.
And he's a character from one of the earlier games, I believe, in the trilogy.
Okay.
Apparently, I have to go back and play him, but.
And then I can't remember you can also unlock a robot later in the game.
Or bot. Yeah, it's one of the robots in like the very last thing before the end boss, basically.
And like I couldn't figure out how to use him. I thought he was terrible, but
yeah, I wasn't. So when you beat them, and then one of them stands off to the side, and I think you have to like not beat them up to recruit them or whatever, and I accidentally beat him up or whatever. And
yeah, I totally got him. Like I unlocked him, but when you choose him as a character, like he plays differently than the others, and I couldn't figure him out.
I've heard he's not considered good.
Yeah,
like Norton
on the low tier.
Norton is considered good because when I played it, I tried a few different characters. I like playing as Echo, the lady, and I liked playing as the main hero guy. They both had different strengths and weaknesses, and you can actually switch between stages. Like some of them are maybe better for some stages than others. Once I got Norton, I actually kind of preferred Norton across the board.
He's got good attack.
He's good.
Yeah, all around solid. His special move basically makes him invulnerable for like 10 seconds.
Yeah,
and it puts him into angry mode. So that's the thing in this game is angry mode.
Yes,
where if you get hit enough, eventually your character just gets pissed off. They're invulnerable for about 10 seconds, and every throw they do is like a super throw.
Yeah, and so every character has 2 special moves per continue. And so you have super moves. So you have a special attack that drains energy and does some damage.
like every other brawling game has.
Yeah, but then you also have a super move, which I didn't figure out at first. You have to taunt and use your special, but you have to time it right, and then it turns the special move into a super move. Which the one guy goes Super Saiyan, Norton goes into angry mode, so he basically gets 3 angry modes per continue. Which is awesome.
Great.
It's great for bosses, especially.
Yeah. I had to read the manual because there's actually a lot of like undocumented combo moves as well.
Yeah.
Even though like I find myself not using most of them.
Yeah, and I guess there's ways to like break out of enemy combos and stuff. Like
I couldn't really figure it out.
If you look through the move list, like there's like one guy has a lariat move to break combos, and you can jump out of them and stuff. They're hard to time. They're a little hard to do.
A lot of the moves were kind of hard to time as well.
But it's such a huge it's got to have the most moves of any game of this era that I've played. It's got so much depth it's a completely different play style for each character too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like
some are just like slower and just have like these bigger combo moves, but
so I mean the only problem I would say the game has is it's almost throwing the game. I understand what you mean. Like, because I went in trying to do the normal beat up combo thing on all the enemies,
and you get your ass kicked doing it.
Well, yeah, like if I started with the lady, and her reach isn't that great, and the first enemies have super long reach, and so they immediately start tagging you. It's like normally you run up to the first enemy in the game, you just beat the tar out of them, right? But no, not here. But she is fast, so there are enemies that like she's the only one who can do her combos because everyone else interrupts you.
And she's got running attacks that aren't too bad. She actually has. Did you ever pull off the flying, flaming knee attack?
Yes.
Which it's kind of hard to hit.
Yeah, you have to do so. Like you have a rushing move, and then you have a jump kick and a rushing jump kick,
right?
And then she has a double jump. So she has a rushing double jump drop kick kind of thing that turns into that.
It looks awesome. I think it takes HP if you hit somebody with it.
Maybe.
Like special.
It seemed kind of impractical.
Yeah. Like it's cool, but like you have to be super good.
But yeah, it's one of those games where you have a jump kick, but then you have a down jump, which is a different kind of jump kick, and then you have a rushing attack, and you have taunts and throws and attacks and special attacks and up attacks. I think all this other stuff.
Yeah, there's
all kinds of throws.
I mean, like in the end though, you throw.
You throw. Yeah, the throw is the best thing for everyone, although it's weird. Most of these games, like, you don't want to go from the front because they'll tag you. In most games, you can go from the back, that's safe, or from, like, the top or bottom. Here, there seems to be a difference coming from the top versus the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, if you come from the top, which for some reason is my habit in these games, certain enemies will always, like, or half the time will grab you instead and throw you.
Especially the fat guys.
The big wrestling guys, where the luchadors or whatever. But if you go from the bottom, it seems to work almost all the time.
Right.
And so I had to train myself, stop coming from the top, Dave. Like, you got to go to the top, draw them up there, and then go down and come from the bottom and grab them.
And did you learn that, like, every character can do an angry throw at any point?
Not entirely. I had read about it, and I hadn't really got it into my brain yet.
So that's why I always chose the main character of the game, the not Martin Sheen character with long hair.
Yeah.
Because if you grab somebody from the front and you do a Hadouken with the, like, punch button, he does an angry throw, which he goes up in the air. It does, like, twice the damage of a normal throw.
Gotcha.
Saves you a lot of time and headache if you just do that. But every character has one of those as just a normal move.
Yeah.
Some, though, you have to grab from the back, and some you have to grab from the front. So you have to, like, know what you're doing.
I was reading that. I just didn't quite internalize it yet.
Yeah.
This is the kind of game where, like, you have one life and 12 continues that are basically lives. And you have to save them. You have to, jealously guard them and not take damage. I mean, you do get some life ups, but
they're pretty generous on their life ups.
Pretty generous, but it's one of those things where, like, some enemies, like those luchador guys, can just keep throwing you, and you can lose so much life.
Easy.
And so you end up getting to the point where you just start cheesing all the fights. Like, I played as Echo, and I just used her dash attack constantly.
Which doesn't deal much damage, but, like, it works.
It's better. I think it's the highest damage running or dash attack. It's way better than the main guy has this really high priority low dash attack.
But it does nothing.
It does no damage, so it takes forever. Whereas hers, it's not as ridiculous. But the thing is, you have to make sure you're in the attack animation before you get close enough for them to grab you, or they'll grab you out of your dash move.
Yeah,
it's wild.
There is a block button, but I've never used it.
I've never used it. Yeah, I tried, and I wasn't sure.
I tried too, and I gave up.
I wasn't sure when to use it.
Yeah, because I think Super Double Dragon also has a block button that's, like, actually, like, you might need to use it.
Kind of neat, yeah.
Yeah, but this one, like, I don't know.
That one, you, like, trap their move, and then you flip them.
I think something like that. Yeah. This one, like, we both went through the game, never needed to use the block button. Wouldn't recommend using it.
Yeah.
The main character, the not Martin Sheen character, he does have a secret move that no one else has that you can totally use to cheese the bosses with.
Yeah.
But I found pulling it off surprisingly almost impossible, and I have no idea why. So you have to be under 10% health, and then you have to hold the block button, do a Hadouken, and press X. Sounds easy, but for some freaking reason you do that, and he just starts taunting and not going Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
If you can go Super Saiyan with him, like, his moves just two-shot most of the bosses, and, like, it's hard to get hit while you're in that mode. That's what I see, like, speedrunners, they just abuse the hell out of that. What I did, I mean, to get through most of the game, well, just like you, Dave, I did a lot of throws.
Yeah.
I did the super throws, so it went faster.
Yeah.
But also, against the bosses, I abused the special move.
Yeah.
Like, you just press A, and like, each character has their own gimmick or whatever, but...
Yeah.
What I found is it doesn't take that much life from you at all when you do them.
Yeah, that seems very counterintuitive.
It takes away, like, about a fifth of boss's life bar if you hit them with a full attack. So, like, you actually lose life less fast than the bosses do. And you're invincible while you're doing this.
Yeah.
And you can get past their, like, invincibility shit as well. So it goes pretty quick.
I think where I started using that a little bit, we have that whirling dervish guy with the two swords.
Yeah. He's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, he is ridiculous, because almost everything you throw at him has less priority than his swords.
Yeah.
So you almost have to do something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or you can use your screen clearing ability as well. It's not great for the bosses, but it will take a good chunk away.
Yeah.
When I use those, it's just like if I had 3 difficult enemies on the screen, just get rid of them.
And it's interesting because, like I said, all the characters have different strengths and advantages. Like the girl has the best rushing move, although the main guy has the best priority on his rushing move. I think, like, his move almost nothing punishes his rushing move.
Right, and he's got the Super Saiyan ability.
And he's got the Super Saiyan
no
thing.
one else has.
The third guy has a bazooka that you use as part of the taunt. Like, he has a regular taunt, and then he has a taunt where you, like, hold the button down for 4 seconds or something, and then he fires a bazooka.
I couldn't figure out how to use that, but he was so slow, I just never wanted to pick him.
I figure out how to use it, but not consistently. And I'm not sure how it would ever be practical. Really.
Yeah, the enemies come at you pretty quick.
They're too fast.
You can't really just dick around in the corner and try stuff. Like,
Yeah.
they're constantly coming at you, so...
He seemed usable, but just worse than the other two.
Right, he's slow.
slower. And then, like I said, the wrestler guy is just useless. Like, he can't even dash. Like, he can do a dash attack, but not normal running.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned him, and I can't even think of who that is, because I probably used him once and just said he sucked and never used him again.
And so, spoilers, there's different endings and stuff in this game. He's the only character that has an actual death scene in the game.
Oh, really?
Depending on who you use and what paths you choose.
Yeah.
He can actually die in the game.
Oh, wow.
Like permanently dead, like you shows a cutscene of him getting killed or whatever.
Whoops.
And he's the one who's like here to rescue his sister, blah blah blah, whatever.
Okay.
So it's weird. But I never played him. He wasn't super. I didn't think he was super useful.
No, if you want to play the game on hard mode, I mean, the game is already hard.
Yes.
But if you want to play the game on even harder mode, yeah, choose the crappy characters.
I think he does the most damage or whatever, but he doesn't do that much more damage, and
Yeah.
he's so much slower than everyone else.
Yeah, you need speed in this game for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the branching paths. So that's one thing, like, I don't know if I've seen many beat 'em ups that have this, if any,
Yeah.
that I can think of off the top of my head, but almost every single stage has a couple different paths that you can go to.
Yeah.
And they get you to either different stages, different boss fights, different unlockable characters.
Yeah, like the first stage, there's these two brothers that are both mutated and slaves and blah blah blah, and which order you take is which order you fight them in.
Yeah.
And I think their moves might have changed a little bit depending on what order you do them in, but I found it easier to go right and beat up the one guy first, and then he tells you, go save my brother, here's the key to get out of here, blah blah blah, and then you save his brother, and then at the end of the game that brother is still alive and with you.
Oh, okay.
The one that you beat up originally, and then the other guy was the other guy was mutated. Sorry, the one guy was just working for them. The second guy was mutated. He dies. Whatever. It's
I probably went on a different path every time I played the game.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You still don't see anything because, like, different characters and stuff have different cutscenes or whatnot too. So, like,
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's also some levels where, like, you have to destroy, there's a countdown. You have to destroy, like, some computers in, like, 20 seconds or some shit. I have never completed those.
No.
They're so hard.
It made it sound like if you don't do it, the ship's gonna crash and you're gonna die. And the character always says, "Oh no, this is the end," and then you're fine. Like it never actually. Yeah. I guess maybe there's a different ending if you manage to destroy all the consoles.
Or I think you get to skip a level or
maybe
something.
Maybe you skip a level or something. Yeah,
I don't know. I could never do it.
I could never do. Yeah, even using my most. There are like some of the characters do the most damage with their punch combos or whatever, but you never use them because they're punished all the time.
Yeah,
I was even using those and it didn't seem to do enough. Maybe you have to go Super Saiyan or whatever to do it. I don't know.
So there's a couple levels like that. It's like destroy the computer or destroy this robot.
Yeah,
in like a minute, and it's like ugh. It's a lot harder than it sounds.
And that weird dervish guy, like he was the guy that shows up earlier in the game and starts bombing you out of his submarine for whatever reason. And then later in the game he shows up and he's like, "I'm on your side now." And you can either choose to keep walking and be like, "Okay, I'm on your side." Yep. And then later on he shows up and betrays you, or you can just say, "Nope, I don't trust you," and just start beating him up. Yeah. And he's like, "I respect you for seeing through my subterfuge."
Yeah, it is the weirdest thing. Well, like that, I can respect that. In a beat 'em up that's normally just go from left to right and beat up everything, like this one offers quite a few branching paths, and like yes, Dave, you need to play it with the music, or at least experience it with the music, maybe not do the whole thing, but
I'll give it a shot.
I think there's also another unlockable character that I saw, and I couldn't figure out how to get him. There's something where like you get to the very end of the first stage, then you go all the way back to the beginning or something, and he's there. I tried it, I couldn't figure it out, but
there's also a select combo with both controllers, but I feel like you need 2 people or more hands than I have to pull it off. It lets you choose all 6 or 7 of the characters from the start.
Away.
Yeah, you can start with Norton or whatever.
Start with the shitty robot.
Yeah, or the shitty robot, yeah. I mean, really, if you want to actually use the robot, that's pretty much the only way to do it, because otherwise you get at the very end of the game.
Yeah, and he's so bad.
Yeah. But it's mostly for starting with Norton, I think. But yeah, I literally was trying it a couple times, and I don't have enough hands to hold all the stuff down properly. Like, I was trying to press the controller against something.
Using your feet.
Yeah, I was literally trying to hold controllers against inanimate objects to keep the button pressed, and it wasn't working.
There's also some little Easter eggs in there, too. Like, I think it might be later in the first level. You can go back a screen or two. And if you get to a certain point, you can go back, and then if you hover over a sewer, you can go into like a manhole cover and basically skip a stage.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's cool, like, there's actual, like, hazards and stuff, like the mines that blow up.
Those don't come into effect more than like a couple times throughout the game, which is kind of nice in my opinion. But
One of the things I really liked was the pits in, I think, the second stage.
Oh, yeah.
That you can lure enemies. I lured an enemy just to walk into the pit.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
I mean, you can knock them into pits, you can throw them into pits,
Yeah.
but some enemies are dumb enough, you can actually get them to walk into the pit on their own. It's great.
Huh. Yeah, throwing him into the pit always feels good. That's, Yeah, what did the original Double Dragon have some points like that too, where you get to just
The
throw
original
people
Double
off
Dragon
ledges
was
and-
great. Yeah. Throw them out the Double Dragon 2. You can throw them out the helicopter window and stuff.
Oh yeah. To throw them off the. I remember what I was talking about. So you can throw a Bobo off the like.
Yes.
Excuse me. Off the like escalators or whatever those are.
Yes. And you can uppercut enemies into spikes and all kinds of... Yeah, there's so many fun. So that's always fun.
Yeah, is there anything else about Peacekeepers that you want to say? I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was originally going to like straight up say, oh, this is just kind of a tedious 3-star game, but I came up to, I think, 4 stars on this.
For sure.
And maybe I might even go 4.5 if the music is what you say.
It's actually pretty good.
And I'm just a dumbass.
Yeah.
I think the thing that keeps it from getting a 5 is that it's so hard and starts out so hard. And I think it's one of those games, like I said, it's the third game in a trilogy. I think it's made for people who are good at beat 'em ups.
Yeah.
Because like you just can't go up and start doing a combo. You need to have the system down pat.
Yeah, the enemy priority is just so good that it's hard to justify, I think, giving it a higher than a 4.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you're very good at this game, maybe you figured it out, you can get it a little bit higher. Like, I wouldn't argue with the 4.5.
Yeah.
Because there is so much to offer that you don't get out of other beat 'em ups, and it is very polished.
Yes.
There's, like I said, you can play any character and get good at them and maybe beat the game, but some characters are just very much harder than others.
And like I said, I don't feel like they give you maybe enough for the average player to get through the game, but I was pretty bad at it at first, and I taught myself in the space of a day or so to get good enough to beat it.
Yeah,
and so that's fair. It's not a Battletoads level of difficulty to get good enough to beat it.
My first playthrough, I couldn't get to the final boss. The second one, I got to the final boss with like a continue left.
Yeah.
Third time, I got to the final boss with like 6 continues left. So that's kind of like just the evolution of gameplay or whatever you want to say right there.
Yeah.
The final boss had a really funny face.
Yeah.
What was up with that?
Well, yeah, because so you thought the final boss was this derpy, Shakespeare
French guy
quoting
with the
guy,
sword
whatever.
and grenades.
Yeah, he was supposed to be the bad guy, and you had told me about some things about the end boss, and so I was spamming moves on that guy, where I think I was wasting moves on the guy that's way easier than it needs to be, and then his son, I guess he mutated his own son the same way that the main character is, so they both can go Super Saiyan at each other. And so so he's actually pretty nasty, but I had gotten good at abusing the angry mode on Norton.
Yeah.
To just keep doing the flips and stuff.
That would be a lot easier than probably the way that I beat it.
Yeah.
Because the angry mode makes you at least invulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. I was abusing that on every single continue. And that's one of the things that when you get good at that game, like you should be dying with 0 super moves.
Yeah.
Because if you die with any of those left, you probably could have beaten those things easily with that
the super moves I equate to like almost half a health bar.
Yeah.
Just in like getting rid of people.
Yeah. So it's kind of a management game in some ways, more than a life management game, more than a beat 'em up. Like, you got to be real careful with your resources.
Well, another little Easter egg too, because I didn't even realize that the second to last final boss, the little Frenchie guy.
Yeah.
I always played it with the main character, and he turned Super Saiyan during that fight. So you legitimately 3-shot the Frenchie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you turn into like normal Martin Sheen or whatever for the fight afterwards.
Yes.
Unless you want to cheese him, get down to 10% HP, and then it's Super Saiyan versus Super Saiyan.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the final boss, he can even beat your Super Saiyan mode by doing his special, which I couldn't find a way to dodge it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think I just beat him so quickly with angry mode throws that I didn't need to, yeah.
Yeah, he hit me with 2 specials that take away like 90% of your HP, which is just brutal.
Yeah, I think I got to him with like 2 or 3 continues, and I was just spamming angry mode throws and had just enough. I think I beat him with a few bars left and maybe 1 continue, I forget.
That's brutal. But yeah, 4 out of 5-star game. I recommend picking it up. I don't know how expensive it is anymore, but like, I don't know. It's in the upper echelon of Super Nintendo beat 'em ups.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to try the other 2 and see how they compare. Like I said, I don't think they tried to make them a trilogy here.
I know they don't compare very well. At least like Rival Turf is very generic.
I think they kept them generic. Maybe they knew they weren't as good as polished.
Yeah. Well, what's the next game you want to talk about here?
The Ninja Warriors.
Ooh.
Which is interesting. I have a bit of a history with this game because I really like this game in the arcade. It's not a great arcade game, but I like it. It's got this great soundtrack. It's got these huge double screens, laid horizontal screens side to side.
Yeah.
And so it's got this huge panoramic view. And it's an amazing arcade cabinet. It's not a very good game, but it's a fun game, if that makes sense.
It's good in its own way.
Yeah.
It doesn't play like a traditional beat 'em up.
Yeah.
Like a lot of enemies just take one hit and they're dead. And this is for the arcade and the home port.
Yeah, they kept a lot of that in the home port, but they expanded on it in a good way.
Yeah. Like the original arcade almost feels like an arcade version of the NES Kung Fu.
Yeah, or like a Russian Attack.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, the arcade game I've never beat. I mean, you can go to I think we have a few places in town that have it.
Yep.
So we could go there and try it. But
yeah,
the Super Nintendo game has always been kind of like one of those weird rarities where it's not very common. It's been somewhere between $100 and $150 ever since I remember.
Yeah.
But it's a very good port in its own way. It's definitely not a direct port.
And it's good enough that they made a new remake of it on the Switch and everything.
Did they really?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it ended up
There's
on
so many of these, I don't even know.
I think it might have ended up on one of the regular collections, but they released a straight up remake of it that's supposed to be pretty good. But this is by Natsume and published by Taito. So, this
every game with Taito is instantly $50 higher.
Right. I mean, you're not expecting anything bad from this.
No.
And yeah, it came out in 94. It was actually Ninja Warriors Again is what it's called in Japan because it's technically a sequel to Ninja Warriors in the arcade.
Huh. No, that makes more sense. I mean, it
Yeah.
does feel like a sequel in a way.
Yeah.
It has much better graphics. I mean, the sprites are very big in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, in the arcade, like, it's very small. But that might also be part of, like, the weird double horizontal screen thing that they got going on.
Yeah, it's wild because you can see things coming from so far in
Yeah.
that game. It's wild.
Yeah.
And you can throw shuriken in that, like, across two screens. So it's kind of, I think,
really?
two screens, yeah. In this game, they don't have the shuriken throwing thing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, whatever.
Yeah, there's not much for attacks really in this game. I mean,
Well, it doesn't seem that way. So you get a move button, an attack button, a jump button, and a blaster button.
yeah.
The blaster button, I originally thought it's just you push the button, it does a super move. Apparently, there's varieties of super moves depending on how
really?
you do. I guess you can do it as part of an attack combo, I think. Like you end the attack combo with the blaster, I think is how it works, and it does different things.
Okay.
I need to try that more. I was reading that online afterwards. And you have a few different kinds of throws. But like some characters are better than like the big huge ninja guy has like 2 or 3 different throws.
And they all do like mega damage.
And they all do a lot of damage. And both the big ninja and the kunoichi both can grab and throw.
Yeah.
The kama ninja guy, he can't grab, he can just throw. So it's harder to tell when you can throw. Like you just immediately throw. You don't grab it and you show him holding the guy and then decide what to do. So it's weird. They can all do that, but he's like the worst at it. And I think he only has the one. It's like a push throw, and whereas the others can once you grab it, and then you can choose to do different kinds of throws.
Yeah,
basically.
like some of the characters can't jump, correct? Like the big guy can't.
The big
jump.
guy, well, he kind of can. It's like a special jumping attack kind of thing.
Well,
you can
yeah.
do. Like because they both have dash moves, but they have like a straight dash and like a down dash, and his down dash is like a little hop with his rocket.
Okay, I've probably never used it because it's like awkward.
Well, he has another thing too, where he levitates or hovers in place with his jets, and then does like a spinny kick kind of thing.
Yeah,
which didn't seem super useful, but it was
No.
neat. So there's a lot of little extra moves if you play around with the button combos. Yeah. Not all of them are super useful.
Like I always liked using the guy with the 2 blade hands. Yeah. I don't know what you want to call him.
I forget what he's like a kappa something or other. He looks kind of like a little kappa.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Anybody has those kama scythe things on his arms. Yeah, he seems to be the best balanced for just getting through the levels.
Yeah, he always felt really good. Like his attacks always felt really crisp.
Yeah, he has
good mobility.
He has good kind of AoE damage. Like
yeah.
he kind of hits people behind and ahead of him when he does his combos and stuff.
Yeah, he was pretty cool. The chick ninja,
She's almost as good as him for general stuff. She's not as good at for bosses.
She's not very strong.
I think she's got some special. She's got like a special jump thing that can jump and hit people behind her.
Yeah.
They all have a dodge move, which I barely used.
Yeah,
I think she might be a higher skill ceiling character because I don't think I got good enough to be useful to find her useful.
Yeah, I remember I started with her, and then I migrated over to the Kappa Ninja. And then for the final boss, I used the big ninja.
Yeah, because you have to throw for the fight, which is a surprise. Because I mean, you can throw the whole game, but you don't really have to. Although it works pretty well.
It's not. It's like the opposite of Peacekeepers, where like your normal attacks are just better.
Yeah, most enemies just take a single hit,
and
then there's some beefier ones that you do an attack combo or whatever, and then you get some of these big like robot walkers that like regular attacks just ping off them.
Yeah, just hit them from behind.
Yeah, you have to hit them from behind, or you have to grab them and throw them, and so you have to get good at throwing about halfway through the game.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the game, you have to be really good at throwing.
So yeah, I don't know if there's much else to talk about other than the final boss. I mean, it's just generally, it's really straightforward beat 'em up.
I mean, like I said, the final boss is weird. That was the only part of the game I really struggled with. And fortunately, I have unlimited continues, so you can keep practicing.
We should probably talk about that. So this is probably the most fair. Now, I played on normal mode. I'm assuming in hard mode, they probably take that away.
Maybe.
But I don't know. I never tested it out.
Yeah.
But that would make sense.
It was a bit of a struggle. I first tried with the female ninja, and I just got destroyed. No, I tried the Kama guy first. And you have to, like I said, you do the shove move.
Yeah.
So you can't aim where you throw the people. So you have to be in the right place when you throw them. And you have to not kill them too quick. Because if you kill them too quick, you get harder enemies that are harder to throw.
Well, yeah, with the final boss, I didn't understand right away like how to beat him. I thought I was just beating all the henchmen and then like he'd start facing me or something.
Exactly.
But it turns out that it's kind of like a Ninja Turtles-esque thing where I think in Turtles in Time, like the first level or whatnot, you have to throw people into Shredder essentially in order to beat them. It's almost the exact same thing. This dude sitting in the middle of the stage has got like lightning pillars all around him.
Yep. And he's in this little glass cage.
Yeah, he's in this little glass cage, and he just keeps summoning henchmen and shooting these pillars everywhere. So it's kind of like you're playing this like cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
But then you notice, like, when you throw enemies and when you throw him into his glass pane, he starts taking damage.
It starts shattering the glass.
And it starts shattering. It's his version of blinking red, essentially.
So you basically, like I said, if you're playing the Kappa guy, you have to stand to the left or right and throw enemies in the middle.
And it's awkward.
If you're the big ninja, you can stand either on the sides and do that, or you can stand in the middle and do the up throw that just kind of hucks them up in the air in an arc, and that seems to almost always hit him.
Yeah, it's much more graceful just doing it with the big guy.
And this is where I wish, it's a Super Nintendo controller, there's whole buttons that aren't being used. I wish you had a dedicated throw button.
Yeah.
That would have been better, I think, maybe. But it's an interesting take on a boss. It's challenging.
I thought it was cool. I mean, it takes like 15 hits. It takes quite a long time.
Well, and because you have to not damage the enemies.
Yeah,
because you got to throw them.
Yeah,
and like I said, at the end you start getting those unhurtable robots, which you can throw them.
Yeah, you have to somehow then get behind them in order to throw them a few times. Like,
it's complicated,
especially if you have the big guy. It's really hard to get behind those. So.
Yeah, because you can't easily jump.
Yeah,
but it's
interesting.
It's a fun game. It's got good music and sound. It's not as good as the arcade music to me, but it's good.
I don't remember
the arcade music. I have it on my phone. I think it's just this long looping. It's kind of quirky music. Some people may or may not like it. It's got some weird notes and stuff in it, but it's cool. It's nostalgic. I immediately hear it in an arcade, and I'm like, oh, Ninja Warriors. I missed the dual screen, but this is a Super Nintendo game. What do you want?
Yeah. I don't think they're gonna make that for home. I don't know. I gave this one probably a 3.5.
I gave it a 4. I was going to give it a 3.5, but the more I played it, the more I was impressed with the depth. It has more depth than you would think when you scratch beneath the surface.
It's like it is fun.
Yeah,
but it's it's just missing something for me, and I can't quite put my head on it. It's a good 3.5 for me is still a very good game.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with 3.5. I mean, it definitely has less replay value.
That's I think part of my aspect is I went from playing Ninja Warriors to then playing Peacekeepers, which has so much replay value. Yeah, and I'm like, I don't like both of them the same. I think Peacekeepers is just better.
Peacekeepers is better. I initially liked Ninja Warriors better because it took less effort to get good at it.
It does, yeah. And it's much easier to get into.
And you can just blast through the earlier levels, and it's kind of fun. Although it gets a little tedious, it's a little samey. A lot of the enemies are very repetitive. Yeah. And so, but the more I played Peacekeepers, the more I liked it better. So it's definitely a step slightly above, whether that's a better 4 or a 4 and a 3.5.
Yeah, and like Ninja Warriors, it is very polished for what it is. So
Yes.
like it's not bad at all. Like I would recommend picking it up if the price is right, but that's gonna be up to the listener, I guess.
Yeah, or try the new one. I need to try that the new remaster version out and see what
Yeah,
it's
I'm
like.
assuming it's just on the shop.
I think it's in the Switch shop. It's probably in the other consoles as well. But
I usually like getting the physical copies if possible, but I don't think that was like a regular release. I think that was like either a limited run or something.
Yeah, I think limited run did a thing with them.
Because now that I think back, I was trying to pick it up, but I knew about it after like all the pre-orders and stuff were done, and I remember it being kind of pricey. So
yeah,
I'm not looking to collect Switch like I do with all the old consoles.
Yeah, that would be hard.
There's already like 700 plus Switch games, and like half of them are like limited run-ish type of games. Like,
Yep.
I'm out of that market.
Yep.
All right, so that's Ninja Warriors, Dave. What else we got here?
Well, we got Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Oh, so this was a game. Who made this? I should just say first.
This was developed by Natsume and published by Bandai.
Okay. This was a game that my buddy bought brand new, like back in 90, whatever, 92, 93, whenever this game came out.
Came out in 94.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
He bought it first day it came out. Power Rangers was like mega popular at the time. Now, Dave, you're probably too old to be a huge Power Ranger fan. But...
I actually kind of was a Power Rangers fan. I was just young enough to be into it, just old enough to be embarrassed that I was into it.
So
if that makes sense.
I was young enough to like dress up as a Power Ranger and like, you know, everything was a Megazord to me in my mind. So
I was old enough that I never would have admitted, even under gunpoint at school, that I liked Power Rangers, but I still watched it at home.
Oh yeah, no, I was a fan. Halloween costumes, dude, everything. I had all the Zords. Like, I was a huge Power Rangers fan dork.
Yeah.
So this game was like right up my alley.
Yep.
Now I understand this is one of the most mediocre basic beat 'em ups ever. However, for what it is, it could be way worse.
Oh, you want to hear something funny too?
Sure.
So this game came out in November 94, I think, in the US. It came out a year later, November 95 in Japan. It was back ported to Japan as still, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Now keep in mind, this is a Power Rangers, that version of Power Rangers is a remake, uses footage from Kyoryu Sentai Zoo Ranger in Japan, right? So on the NES, there is a game for Zoo Ranger.
Yeah, there is, and it's very mediocre.
But it uses the actual Zoo Ranger assets, blah blah blah. Yeah. When they put this over in Japan, they didn't call it Zoo Ranger; they called it Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So it's like the American version of their thing, right?
Well,
a year later.
I mean, the characters in the game were the American actors.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I don't think Japan really got the cartoon, got the US version of Power Rangers like on TV, as far as I know.
I don't think so either.
They all had all this original Sentai stuff.
Yeah, I've never seen Sentai. So do they even have like non-costumed Power Rangers running around doing teenager shit?
They do, but like the White Ranger is a little kid in Japan that turns into a ranger. Like he's not.
It's not Tommy.
And it's three. And Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is 3 different series of Sentai lumped into one thing, right? So it's complicated. But what I was gonna say is, like I said, they backported the US version of this to a market that already knew what Sentai was and just kept it as, basically USA Power Rangers, which is weird. And then they also released a similar game for the Genesis. I think it's the same game, but it adds the Green Ranger.
Are you talking about the American Genesis games? Or
yes. I think it's this game on the Genesis, same game, but it adds the Green Ranger.
No. That is not true.
Are you sure?
Yes.
That's what I'm reading online. I was curious if it was true.
Unless there's another Power Ranger game that I've never heard of that I don't have.
We'll have to try it, because that's what I was seeing online.
I don't think that it came over to America.
Maybe it's only Japan, but it's a Genesis game is what I'm saying.
So there is a 2 games that I know of on the Genesis. One's a straight one-on-one fighting game that's really bad.
Right.
The second is, how do I explain it? It's like the Super Nintendo Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Definitely not the same. Definitely like not even remotely the same game.
Okay.
It's also very bad.
Yeah.
It's very.
I was just curious.
I don't know. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like the Tinker Toys version of like this game.
Sure. I was just curious how close it was because it seemed funny that the Super Nintendo got the one but didn't get the one with the Green Ranger and the Genesis did.
What I want to say is the Genesis one I think follows more of the movie.
Okay.
Where this Power Rangers game that we're talking about follows like just the pre-movie, the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Genesis one is all about the movie because it has all the movie Zords, and I think it has, I mean, it might have the Green Ranger and the White Ranger. I can't remember. Like, it's been a while since I played it, but like, it sucks.
Yeah, I'll have to look into it. I'm curious if there is. Maybe it's a Japan only release or something weird.
Maybe, but it has a very Sega soundtrack as well, where it just sounds like metal on metal.
Yeah,
but not to get too sidetracked,
but yeah, the actual game itself, like you said, it's a pretty generic. You have an attack button, a jump button, and a Dino Bomb button. It just does damages everything on the screen. The fighting and stuff is almost the same between the teenagers and the Power Rangers, except that the Power Rangers get weapons, which is actually fun.
And aren't they a little bit stronger?
They're definitely stronger, but you're fighting
stronger enemies.
Actually, I'm not sure if you are any stronger because I think some of the regular putties die in one hit either way.
Oh, okay. Then I'm thinking about the second Power Rangers.
I think you might be thinking of the second game.
Where you definitely do get an upgrade of power.
Yeah. This one, I think the main difference is that you get the weapon. And the weapons are cool. The weapon, like Tommy's weapon is just, it's the sword. It's fast. It does okay. I think the Yellow Ranger might be the worst because hers are like, her attacks are about as good as the sword, but a little less reach.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, Billy, like, he gets the trident, which has the best reach, and he can, like, spin it just as a standard move.
So I think if you press up and attack, it does all the special moves.
Exactly,
right?
it does that. And whereas Pink Ranger gets the bow, so up and attack, she gets to shoot across the screen.
Which is pretty cool.
It does piddling damage, but you can kill Putty before it gets to you, so that's cool. And Zach, the Black Ranger, I think is basically like Jason, but I think might hit a little harder. Might be a little slower.
He's got like 2 sais or like 2 daggers or something.
No, he's got the axe. He's got the
that's right. Duh.
Yeah, the 2 sais is the Yellow
Ranger. The Power
Ranger.
Ranger fan doesn't know the Power Rangers over here.
Yeah.
My bad.
But anyway, I mean, it's
Mastodon, brother.
It's interesting because you can choose what Power Rangers to pick throughout the levels.
Yeah.
And there's nothing stopping you. It's not like when you use one on one, you can't use it on the others.
No.
So you could pick the best one and use it through all of them.
But honestly, there's like barely a best one.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, most of them play like almost the exact same.
But there's like 5 regular levels and 5 Power Rangers. So if you wanted to, you could pick assign one of them to each level for the fun of it. Yeah. And you could assign, the Yellow Ranger for level 1 because she's maybe slightly worse, and save Billy for
Billy's
Kimberly
always the lamest.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You would think he's the lamest, but he's actually one of the better ones.
Well, in this game, I'm just saying, like, I hate his sprite as Billy.
Well,
he looks like such a dork.
Well, it's perfect because he has the dorky outfit. He has the dorky walk cycle. He protects his head when he punches.
And like
when he punches, one of his hands goes above his head, and the other one punches.
It's so dumb. It makes him look like such a little dork.
But that's how he was in the first season, right?
No,
wasn't
he? I mean, he was a dork. He was like Poindexter, but
in the early episodes, he fought like a huge dork, and then he got better, didn't he?
But he looks like a fat little midget in this game, and I just can't get over it.
But no, I think they literally
because he's not.
Well, yeah, but he got better like within the first season, wasn't it? But in the first few episodes, he fought like a huge dork, right?
Sure.
And then he actually got better. He actually improved more than any of the other Rangers, didn't he?
No, he definitely didn't.
I'm just saying. I mean, most of the others were martial artists to start with, and he was just a dork coming along for the ride, wasn't it? Kind of. I mean, I'd
have to go back and watch. It's been 30 years, I think, since I've watched it.
I think he officially, exercised or did whatever that the rest of them did, but I think he was the one that wasn't supposed to be any kind of martial artist to start with.
I just always remember that David Yost is a fit, normal-looking dude who has, sure, he wears suspenders and glasses, but, he doesn't look like a pudgy little dork.
But, like I said, that they made him, they dressed him up to look more like a dork than he was. He clearly...
It was the 90s. Everyone looked like a dork.
But they made him look more of a dork than anyone else.
Because he wore suspenders and glasses.
Yes, they dorkified his look.
But he does not look like he does in this video game.
Well, no, but they wanted him to. That was the whole point. He was supposed to be the pudgy dork, even though he clearly in real life was not. He was clearly, cut. but he didn't. They didn't
say he was not a bad
but they didn't portray him that way. He was supposed to look like the dork, and then he he was the self-insert character, right?
Sure.
He was the pudgy dork that became the superhero kind of guy.
Yeah.
Where Zach was, I mean, the others were Power Rangers almost to begin with. They were already like fighting at a Power Ranger
Zach was
level.
already like cool breakdancer guy, like.
Yeah, Jason was already just
like
straight
a boxer
up
or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was like a capoeira, kickboxer or whatever. And Jason was straight up superhero dude already, basically,
Yeah, and like oh yeah. Okay, so I'm thinking like Tommy was the karate guy.
Yes, and on Tommy, when he came in, he was like, "Oh yeah, you were the leader, you're pretty good, but I'm better in every way."
Yeah, like him and Jason were actually having fights like out of costume, and like he was getting the better of them. Like that was pretty sweet, back in the day.
So that amused me. They were kind of. I remember that early season when Billy was the dork, and then he kind of grew out of it.
Yeah, it just always angered me going back to the video games. Like, especially it's really only the 2 on Super Nintendo that they just made him look so pathetic.
But he doesn't look the worst.
Okay.
Zach looks the worst.
If you get riled up about just.
Did you like my joke? What's Zach's last name? Popo?
Yeah, it's
that's a reference to Mr. Popo.
Like how's the most sensitive way to say this? Like I'm trying to think. Like it's hard to say it in a culturally appropriate way.
It's minstrel show Zach.
It
right?
looks like it's a video game character in blackface.
Yeah, but when I first looked at him in the levels, just playing,
he was normal.
He wasn't. He was the worst sprite, but it was like, oh, it's just not a very good sprite.
Right.
Then you see him at the end of the game when he's dancing.
Wow.
And he has the ginormous oversized lips,
pink lips
and
with the
bug eyes and stuff.
It
it's like
looks horrible.
I think it's unfortunately a trope in Japan where they sometimes portray characters because
okay, Captain Black out of Dragon Ball, Mr. Popo out of Dragon Ball.
They do that portrayal of people of different races sometimes. Just
it's like straight up shoe polish with like pink lipstick. It looks horrible.
It's apparently a thing that was, I guess, popular at a certain era, unfortunately, and no one really cared until more recent years, let's say.
Yeah, but looking back, it's like,
have.
oh boy.
Yeah, it's cringy.
Like when he's driving the car and all you can see is like his lips, and it's just like,
it's cringy.
This looks like some 1950s Americana racism almost. Like it.
Yeah,
it looks bad.
And literally, he's front and center in the end game
when he's doing the dance,
he's doing the break,
and then when he's in the car, like none of it looks good.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate sprite. Yes, yes. But otherwise, it's an okay game. The levels aren't terrible. They're not too long.
The levels for the most part are kind of boring. Just left to right.
The music and sound is fine. Go Power Rangers. It's a good enough rendition.
And then title screen for sure.
And then you get to the end, like those last 2 stages.
They're the best.
Surprise Megazord stage.
Yes.
And the only problem I have with it is you don't get to practice before you're in the middle of fighting a boss.
No, but you can do a stage select code in order to get back there.
But so yeah, when I first got there, I was struggling. I mean, I didn't struggle to beat the first boss. I beat him on my first attempt, but it got closer than it should have.
Yeah.
And then I had to try a bunch of times to beat the last boss until I got good enough.
What I liked about that is like that special meter that builds up while you're fighting.
Yes.
That makes your Megazord do all the special moves from the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's either like maybe little lasers here, maybe a little like energy move there, but like if you charge it up all the way, he does this badass sword attack.
Yeah.
And you can finish off like. Oh, I love that. I love those stages.
And that last boss, what is it, Cyclopsis or whatever? Like, he was one of the big guys that, like, destroyed the Zords or whatever in one of the episodes.
I think so, yeah.
He was one of the they had a few guys each season that, just wrecked the Zords so badly that they needed to rebuild their power source or get new Zords or whatever the thing was that season.
Yeah, what's funny is when I played that originally and I was looking back, like, I couldn't think of even who that boss was. I had to go back in Wikipedia because I'm like, I don't remember this dude.
Yeah.
But all the other bosses of the game are, like, all the bosses from the first season or so. First season.
Yeah.
I think iGuy's in there, and I forgot what the names of all of them are, but...
Yeah, there's the
gnome. What's that gnome's name? He has a cool name.
I forgot. There was
gonna piss me off.
There was the guy, the swordsman in the camo, and the skeleton guy, and and some of those were cute. That was when they didn't immediately rush through all the stuff in those episodes. You got to play around with the boss guy a little bit
I
before.
thought all the boss fights are actually pretty fun.
They were
Because
pretty
they're all they all play a little bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them you could kind of blast through without trying very hard. Some of them you have to be careful and avoid attacks. Like that second, I think it was the second one where he would stand on left or right of screen. He would teleport around and do different kinds of attacks.
That's the gnome, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, and he was
gnarly gnome. I think might be his
maybe
name.
he was surprisingly hard until I was a little more careful avoiding his. I think if you stand in the middle platform, he's a little better because you want to be able to hit him immediately after he shows up, and then you stop most of his attacks.
So that's the strat.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, all in all, I always loved this game growing up, and I can understand its faults like later on.
Yeah.
But as like a Power Rangers fan service game, like it's kind of exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah.
And when you compare it to the two Sega titles, like it's infinitely better in my opinion. Those Sega games are trash. Like you should try to play them at some point. Like they're fairly easy, but they're like really bad.
Yeah, I feel like this one's at least a solid 3, maybe a 3.5.
I'd say 3.5 just because like it does nothing bad.
No.
Other than it being like really repetitive and kind of boring.
Yeah.
And there's like no moves really.
Yeah. Yeah, some more moves. For a Super Nintendo game, like it could probably have been a Nintendo game.
Yeah. But it looks pretty as a Super Nintendo. Like, the graphics look great. The sound's great.
And when it came out was 94, right? So this didn't come out early Super Nintendo. This was something they rushed out in a hurry because Power Rangers was super popular.
Power Rangers is huge.
Yeah.
And as a Power Rangers fan, like this is everything I wanted when it came out.
And you can tell by the Japanese release date. Like I said, this wasn't most games start in Japan and then are ported over.
Yeah.
This was back ported.
Yeah. But it's everything it needed to be at the time.
Yeah.
It could have been better. I give it a 3.5, and that's purely coming from like a Power Rangers fanboy back in the day.
Yeah.
I could easily say giving it a 3 because it's it's kind of boring, but like
yeah, if you're not a Power Rangers fan, you're not gonna have as much toleration for it. Maybe.
Yeah, if you weren't a Power Rangers fan, I'd probably just say skip the game.
Yeah.
But if you are a Power Rangers fan, you're gonna like it. So
yeah,
it's one of those.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about the second Power Rangers game real quick, Dave?
Not as much.
This game it's Power Rangers the movie. This obviously came around the movie time.
Yep.
Which was a huge time in Power Rangers, history, I guess. So when Power Rangers kind of hit more than mainstream at the moment, and they had their toys everywhere. Remember McDonald's used to have their toys. I tried to get them all, but I couldn't. But I don't know. The movie game is not like as generic a beat 'em up as you normally get. It's kind of a weird. Instead of having one stage where you move like up and down on, you now have like two panes that you can attack from. Yeah. Like an upper pane and a down or a lower pane.
Yeah, there's some other games that do that thing too. Yeah, where there's two levels that you can jump between.
Yeah, I don't know what they call it.
Yeah, it's like Fatal Fury does something similar.
Yeah, but it's interesting. There's a button that'll basically either put you on the top or the bottom of the screen where there's enemies and upgrades or power-ups or whatever on each side, I guess, of the stages you want to call it. It plays much better, in my opinion, as a two-player game.
Yeah.
So you can have one person and, one on top, one on the bottom, and you're each fighting enemies. It goes a lot faster when you do it that way.
Yeah, so it's weird. This game, it's also made by Natsume, published by Bandai, released a year later, July 1995, the same time roughly when the first game was backported to Japan. This game was not backported to Japan. This game did not have a Japanese release.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't think Japan cared about the Power Rangers movie necessarily.
Probably not, because it follows the American
Power
Rangers.
It was purely for the American market, I think.
Huh.
And so, yeah, this game was a step forward for graphics and sound.
Yeah,
and
it looks great.
A lot of things.
Great.
I think it was a step back in gameplay, personally.
I think you need to play it more.
I do need to play it more. I didn't. This is when I had the least time for the things for this session, but it's like you don't have weapons, right? So when you turn from regular form to Power Ranger form, it's not that you have separate levels anymore. Like you have levels to play as the teenagers. You just want to get to Power Ranger form ASAP, which you do by collecting the little power things.
Yep.
And then you transform. Fortunately, you don't get knocked out of your transformation, so you can stay in that the rest of the level. Then you can gather more power things, and if you fill up your bar again, then you can use your weapon, which is cool, until it runs out.
Yeah.
But you can't save it. It just immediately goes into that form. Or you can use you use your power, your dino power or whatever thing to kill everything on the screen, which is a waste because then you lose the ability to use your weapon.
I rarely use that.
So it's just I wish they would design that a little better so you could choose when to use that power, when you use your weapon or something. But you don't get to use your weapon the whole time. You're just punching, so it doesn't feel any different from being the teenager, except that you hit harder.
See, now I find that is kind of adding strategy to the game.
I guess.
Whereas, like, before, so the original game, you just become a Power Ranger, like, halfway through each stage. There's nothing you can do to stop or prevent it or make it happen sooner. It just happens.
Yeah.
In this game, like Dave said, you collect these power-ups. Yeah. But you want to basically become a Power Ranger as early as you possibly can.
Yeah.
If you're playing two-player, you have to share the power-ups, so you have to kind of plan around it.
Yeah, and I found that you can skip some of the enemies, but then you miss their power up. You miss the power meter thing. So you're trying to sometimes risk getting hit so that you can kill that putty before he runs off the screen, so you can power up immediately.
And if you can time it right, you want to get your weapon like during the boss fight or whatever, so you can just kind of nuke around the bosses.
But yeah, you have to know what's coming so that you don't get too many or too few power ups. I mean, the bosses will give you power during the boss fight, but not a ton. Right.
So it'll get you there eventually, but if you can plan it right, you get your strongest stuff right when it starts, and then you're like just instant killing. Well, not instant killing the bosses, but they're fairly easy at that point.
Yeah, it just I like the powering up during the level instead of a whole level as the teenager. Yeah. But I don't like how you're stuck without the weapons almost all the game.
Yeah, that does kind of suck.
It kind of sucks.
Also, becoming a Power Ranger makes you a lot stronger.
It does.
So it's like, especially, and this really comes into play two-player, is like, all right, who needs to be stronger now?
Yeah.
I mean, it really doesn't matter, but typically you're better player, you want stronger.
And I noticed they removed some of the moves. Like in the first game, you have like a regular attack and a regular jumping attack and a jump kick. This one, you just have a jumping punch, and it's not as good as the jump kicks.
No, it depends on whatever character you choose.
Okay, well, maybe some of them have better moves than others.
Yeah, so, like, that's what I always find weird is I think, like, Jason and Tommy have these stupid jump punches. Yes. Billy definitely has a stupid jump punch.
Yes.
But the Black Power Ranger, I don't remember if that's Adam or if that's Zach.
Oh, wait, no. Yeah, Adam's the red one, isn't he?
No, Adam,
because this isn't Jason anymore.
Oh, is this Rocky?
This is Rocky, I think. Remember. I think Rocky is Rocky and Adam, I think, yeah. And Aisha, I think, was the yellow.
Oh, right. And then was Kimberly still around?
Kimberly was still around.
Okay.
Kimberly and Billy were the two from that were still around.
And Billy does also look like a freaking nerd in this one, too.
Similarly.
And he's bad in this one, just straight up.
Yeah, well, because he doesn't have the weapon, so he's just, I think, strictly worse in this one.
He's strictly worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the different Power Rangers had different jumping abilities. Sure. That's why, like, as much as I want to choose Tommy because he's just like the best Power Ranger of all time.
Well, the new Red Ranger, not Tommy.
No, I'm talking about.
I'm sorry.
Tommy's in this game is the White Ranger.
I'm sorry, Jason. I keep getting Tommy and Jason confused.
No. Jason Rocky sucked. It was all about Tommy.
Yeah.
But his attack was like the jump punch, so I like never chose him. So I was just stuck with I think it was like the Black and the Yellow Ranger both had jump kicks, which are just better.
And some of I'd like to see all their weapons. Like Tommy's, his Saba, his saber, whatever, has this weird little arc, which is better than the punching, but not that great. It's not that great.
I can barely remember what their weapons do at this point.
Yeah.
I do remember, too, there is a reason to kind of save your morph, because it does refill your life meter. So sometimes you want to kind of save it to, like, a later area of the stage when you're down to one hit.
Yeah.
Then you morph, and all of a sudden you have a full life meter again. It's really good for bosses and such. So
yeah, I guess that makes sense, except that then if it's too long in the stage, then you're not getting any of that power to use your weapon.
Right. So there's a trade-off depending on how good or bad you are at the game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I thought the boss fights were a lot of fun, although like some of them are just take forever to kill.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks, but
it did seem like the levels, some of the levels were had a little more variety in the platforming and stuff than the first game.
And you didn't even get to like the snowboarding stage.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty fun. It's like I don't want to say it's their version of the turbo tunnel, but it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Where it's like there's a lot of pitfalls and stuff that like, you can lose lives pretty fast, which in this game, like, you definitely don't want to lose lives because it gets harder and harder.
Yeah, and you don't have unlimited continues or anything,
Nope.
I don't think, yeah.
Nope.
I wasn't sure if there was a password thing. I think I might have been misled online about that
I've never looked it up, so I couldn't tell you. All I know is that I played this with Kyle. Yeah. He was over, and it took us, I think, 3 times of trying really hard in order to finally beat it. And Ivan Ooze, he does have patterns, but like his attacks deal a lot of damage.
Yeah, and I thought I saw that both Zed and Ivan Ooze were in it, which is cool, because the first game didn't even have Rita in it, which is kind of weird. I guess
Yeah.
I mean they don't really fight her.
No.
It was mostly fighting her monsters, so it makes sense. But,
Yeah.
like she in that game, they just showed her briefly. Like the cutscenes were kind of lame in that. They just like showed her on the screen. Where this one I think had better like cutscenes, and like when you morphed, it was cooler. You know?
Oh, yeah, I can't remember all the bosses that were in this game other than just Ivan Ooze, because a lot of them I don't even recall from, like, back in the series.
Yeah.
Because at this point, I had kind of watched the movie, and then after that, I kind of softened on Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Like, I never really watched Power Rangers Ninja, or whatever that was called.
Zeo and Ninja.
I definitely didn't watch Zeo. I think
Zeo
I watched
and Turbo, and,
I watched Thunder, because I had the Thunder Megazord, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But, yeah, after Ninja, I never really got into it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I thoroughly enjoy this game. I think there's a lot more strategy than involved in the first one. The level variance is a lot different.
Yeah.
It does have a different play style.
Yeah.
Just in general, it's not like it doesn't feel so much like a beat 'em up where you hit enemies like 3 times and they fall down and you throw them and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's more of a punch and they fall. Kind of like a Ninja Warrior.
It's more of a fighting platformer almost than a brawler. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thoroughly enjoy it. And my score is gonna look a bit different than Dave.
Yeah,
I think honestly it's a solid 4-star game.
Yeah, I was looking at it as a 3-star, slightly worse than the first one, but I do need to play it more, so that's fair enough.
Yeah, maybe we'll play 2-player one of these days.
Yeah, that would probably I could see that improving it quite a bit.
Yeah, but I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it. Plus, it has the best title screen out of any Power Rangers game. So
sure.
That music, I can't remember. Do they have full voiceover in that song or no?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
The first one I don't think did,
I don't recall either one did, but I mean they both were a pretty good rendition, but I don't recall the vocals.
Okay. Maybe I'm just imagining it because I was thinking in my head.
It was pretty uncommon to have vocal stuff even in SNES games, I think, at that time. I mean, you'd see it more, but it still wasn't a given.
But it is always nice to have like a great rendition of a theme song.
That was one of those things. Like as much as people would get embarrassed by Power Rangers, that original soundtrack was still just amazing.
Yeah, that opening theme. Like, I can still go back to it and get kind of pumped up. It gets my blood boiling a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Like, that guitar riff is just like, dude, I don't know who made this, but like, I need to throw him $5 at some point.
Yeah, I still low key kind of like Power. I'll go and watch Linkara do History of Power Rangers and be thoroughly entertained. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No, I haven't. Like, I don't mind. They used to have it on Netflix or something, and I used to go watch it every now and then. But
yeah,
I haven't seen it on any streaming service in a while. I'm sure it's somewhere, but
yeah,
like they're really easy to watch. Just some of the teenager stuff is just total cringe.
Yeah, and I think as a kid I thought Bulk and Skull were the stupidest thing ever. But the more you get into the series, like I say, you listen to some of the history stuff, they're like more important characters than some of the Power Rangers themselves, kind of.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I was like 7, so I liked Bulk and Skull. If I go back and watch it nowadays, I'm just like, I fast forward through all that shit.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't stand it.
Yeah, it's a little too cringy. It's
like,
more for little kids.
Billy, like, especially in the first season or two, he has such a whiny, dorky voice. And it's just like, dude, no.
And there's some weird stuff about the politics of those shows, and you know, people getting paid or not and stuff like that.
I gotta go back and watch that. I know David Yost, the Blue Ranger, he had a really hard time because he came out later as gay, but I know, like, on set, especially in the early 90s, it was so uncool.
Yeah.
And I know he got a lot of harassment on set. So, like, I always feel bad for him, but, like, he was always one of the best Rangers, and he was around for a long time, too.
Oh, yeah,
because I think he kept coming back.
Yeah, he was one of those. Him and Tommy, I think, kept coming back a lot.
Tommy's in, like, everything.
Yeah.
He never left.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, he would leave for a season, and then, oh no, there's a new Ranger, and we have no idea who it is. Who could it possibly be?
Yeah, no, more power to David Yost. He's always great.
Yep.
All right, Dave, what is the next beat-em-up game we're talking about today?
Yeah, I think we wanted to talk about Combat Tribes.
Is it Combat Tribes or is it Combat Tribes?
I always thought it was Combat Tribes, but...
Is it one word or is it
It's one word.
Okay,
I think.
Combat Tribes.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. So it's developed and published by Technos. Same people, you know, behind Double Dragon. And there's a reason for that, because my understanding is that this was some of the same people behind this who made, like, the original Double Dragon, but weren't involved in, like, Double Dragon 3, which I think was a contemporary game in the arcades, as I understand it, or pretty similar time frame.
I don't know if I ever played the arcade version of Double Dragon 3.
It's pretty bad.
Is the second one a port of that? I think it might be.
No, I mean, no, the Double Dragon 1 and 2 used the same engine, and they were pretty similar in the arcade. Those are the ones that were, like, really slow, but they were fun, but they were kind of slow and jerky a little.
Yeah.
3 is completely, that's the Rosetta Stone one. That was the one that was ported to the really bad 3 on the NES.
I have beaten that on NES.
And on the storyline's basically similar, but the gameplay is completely different in the arcade and the NES.
Okay, I always get confused because I have Double Dragon 3 on Sega.
The one on Sega is similar to the
different.
arcade.
Okay.
Where you have like a numeric health bar, and there's stores you can go in and buy stuff, and it's just the gameplay is just not as good.
Yeah, I remember playing it and I'm like, oh, that was...
People rip
that
on...
was $20 or whatever.
Yeah, people rip on 3 on the NES, but I think it's even still a better game than 3 in the arcade.
3 of the NES is bad.
It is, but it still plays close to the first 2 games. It's just ruined by certain things, right?
It is bad.
Whereas the other one, they completely lost the train of thought for what made the other earlier games good. And that continued on into this. I mean, I think it was a different team, but it was, I think, similar groups within Technos, and they didn't seem to know what made Double Dragon cool anymore, I think.
This game sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of how to even explain it. Like, it's just a mess.
The sprites are too big. Like, so like the enemy sprites are okay, but the character sprites, they're supposed to be like a foot taller than everyone else, and it shows, and it looks derpy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they look too big. I mean, they're supposed to be, I guess, superhuman, cybernetic, whatever people in the future kind of thing. But they look weird compared to all the other sprites.
Yeah, the smallest guy in the game is supposed to be like 6'9".
Yeah.
And then 6'11", and then 7'1".
Well, and like I
What
said,
is this?
you look at them and they have, you know, these weird names. They're all sounding names. Berserker and Blitz and Belova. But the 2 guys, aside from the yellow guy that was added, the other 2 are clearly Billy and Jimmy stand-ins. You know, they
just like a foot
they
taller.
filed off Bimmy and Jimmy and you know, changed them to Belova and Blitz, or sorry, Blitzkrieg and Blitz or whatever it is, Berserker and Blitz. But yeah, it's playable. I mean, the fighting is fine. There's some fun moves. You can pick people up and throw them around and stuff.
There aren't really like levels.
Yeah, it's a mosh pit boss fight. Or, sorry, it's a mosh pit, you know, crowd fight, henchman fight, and then a boss fight. Rinse and repeat.
Yeah, it's literally that for the entire game.
I mean, it's a decent number of enemies on the screen at once, which is cool.
Well, the first level throws you into like 7 enemies surrounding you.
Yeah.
You have to beat the crap out of all of them, and then like another flood of henchmen, and then immediately there's a boss fight.
Yeah.
Beat the boss. Next stage, it's the exact same thing every single stage.
And I think the arcade game was similar, except I think it was a 3-player arcade game. Which
might be more fun with 3 people.
It was more fun because you saw how it was more fun when we played it 2-player. Yeah. I think it was even better 3-player.
Even though you shared the same continue pool, which is total BS.
In the arcade, I think it was a fun game just to plug in quarters and just beat the snot out of hordes of guys. Yeah. That was the whole point of it.
I think the combat feels okay.
I think it was actually fairly popular in the arcade at the time. I think it still looked kind of dorky. It was kind of one of those early 90s trying really hard to be 90s cool kind of games.
Yeah, everyone's got a buzz cut.
Yeah,
it looks nerdy.
Yeah. It doesn't age well at all.
No, what I will say is the dialogue between levels is pretty awesome.
Yep.
Like, it's so 90s cringe.
Yep.
Like, your main guy will go up to somebody, hey, fatso, where do I find so-and-so?
Yeah.
And they tell you the same thing every single time. Or, hey, billiard head. Like, what is this?
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be saying cue ball or something would be better.
Yeah, maybe it got lost in translation or something. They didn't know, but like, oof, bad.
Yeah, and it's really short, but hard enough that it's hard to get through it and all the continues they give you.
Yeah, the bosses can be kind of rowdy. I mean, each one of them has like some weird interruptible attack where it just looks like they're going batshit insane on their TV.
Some of them, it seems like if you get in a good rotation and you stay close enough and you just keep hitting them, like you have to avoid using certain moves against the bosses because they'll punish you.
Yeah.
But if you can keep doing your combos, you can maybe keep them from responding.
Yeah, and each one of these stages and bosses has like their own gimmick henchmen.
Yes.
Like some of them are like baseball players, some of them are like not skateboarders, but rollerbladers.
Yes.
It's just like, ugh.
It's kind of funny because this whole Double Dragon universe, it's supposed to be like post-apocalyptic, Mad Max kind of,
gangs run the streets.
Gangs running the streets kind of stuff, but it starts to get a little too much to the point of silliness in this one, I think. It's a little more like the Warriors or something almost. You know?
I equate it to like watching Batman and Robin, like the crappy movie from the 90s. That's kind of what the henchmen are in this game.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's like trying to do something like the Warriors or something and doing it poorly.
Yeah, right.
And coming across as cringe, you know. That's
pure cringe.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's really nothing else to say about this game. I mean, it's like all these levels, and then the last level is like a boss rush level.
Yeah.
And the end boss, I haven't beaten. I've gotten to her. She just sticks on you like glue. You can't even move. Just whoops your ass. I have no idea. I got to her with 1 life left and just got my ass kicked. So
yeah,
I have nothing else to really say about it.
Yeah, I what to rate this? Maybe a 2.5 out of 5. I mean, it's not actually
it's playable.
It's playable. It's not a technically bad game. The music is fine. It doesn't really have too many bad points other than the cringe.
Yeah, I mean, some of the attacks are kind of fun. Like, I always love the attack, and it's the best one in the game where you just start smashing somebody's face into the concrete.
Yeah.
It feels good, I guess, but...
Maybe a 3. You know?
I want to go 3.
Yeah, 2.5 is safe.
2.5 is like your most Mick average. Like,
yes.
I played it once and never need to play it again type of game.
Yeah, it's kind of the Mick average brawler on the SNES, I feel like.
Yeah.
There are definitely worse, but it's never going to come anywhere near the better games.
No, it's one of those games where I'll eventually beat it, and then it'll sit on my shelf, and I will never think about it again.
Yeah, if you never have, try it in the arcade once just for kicks and giggles.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen it there. Maybe Galloping Ghost has it.
Yeah, I'm sure Galloping Ghost has it. I don't remember if any of the places in town do. I don't think I saw it at Geeks Mania. I don't think I saw it at...
I don't think it's in the other one.
Either of the newer places.
It's not in any of the barcades that I know about. So.
Yeah, it's not a common game. I mean, like I said, I think it was popular for a hot minute and then it was gone.
Yeah. So I don't know, completely skippable. It's one of those games I think it goes for like $50-ish. I could be wrong, but I know it was like 40 something when I bought it.
Yeah.
I would say skip it, but if you want something laughable, something really dumb, it might be fun to put in for once. So
yeah.
That's all there is to say about Combat Tribes. Dave, what do we got next?
Well, I think we should talk about the turtle in the room.
This was one where we didn't even have it on the list, and then I was thinking, I'm like, well, how are you talking about like a Super Nintendo beat 'em up game without Turtles in Time?
Yeah, I mean everyone's played it, right? Everyone's
I don't think there's anything else that we can say about it that anyone else like hasn't.
I mean, it's kind of the standard bearer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want a brawler on the SNES, you got to try it at least. And I don't know if it's explicitly the best, but it's up there, right?
I mean, can you think of anything better?
It's probably not technically, you could say something like Peacekeepers is a more technical brawler, but TMNT is probably
is way more fun.
It's way more fun.
Yeah.
It's possibly the most fun, most entertaining brawler.
Can you think of anything that might even be in the same breath?
On the, I mean, it's similar to something, there's similar games on other consoles.
Well, right, we're not talking about Sega.
Right, but on the SNES itself, like, if you fixed something like Double Dragon, then maybe.
No.
But if you fix the slowdown, but probably not otherwise. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the, Final Fight 3 is definitely not as good.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, nothing else really jumps to mind.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the flag bearer of.
You probably have to give it a 5-star game.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
There's really nothing bad or wrong about it.
Yeah, so in short, I mean, it's a Turtles game. Turtles was mega popular at the time.
Yep.
Still kind of is today, but you can pick any of the Turtles. They all do it. Kind of have their different stats, which I never really realized until I watched speedrunners do them.
Yeah, and it's one of those, it's like the first game in the home consoles that really replicated the arcade games well. It's not exactly the same as Turtles in Time in the arcade, but it's so close you wouldn't really notice the difference unless you're looking at them side by side.
Yeah, so the NES had 4 Turtles games technically. The first one is definitely not a brawler.
Right.
The second one was, but it's super repetitive. It's like a very janky arcade port.
Well, it's good. It's a good arcade port for the NES.
For the time, it was great. You go back and play it now, and it's like, it's a slog.
Yeah.
The third game, I think, is the best.
Yeah.
But, I mean, also, it's a slog.
And the arcade Ninja Turtles, the first one, was fun. But it's kind of similar in some ways to the NES, where you don't have a lot of moves, you don't have a lot of options. It's just
But it looks great. It
It's
controls
just beating
great.
up Foot Clan until you get bored with it.
Yeah, for a Turtles game, it's like exactly what you want.
Whereas Turtles in Time added some fun stuff. You know, everyone remembers the move where you throw the Foot Clan members off the screen and they go off toward the player. You know, everyone remembers the move where you grab them and bang them back and forth. You know, it just added a lot of fun, cool moves.
And it's very fast gameplay. It's all very tight. The music is like incredible.
The music's incredible. The bosses are great.
Yeah, the graphics look great.
Faithful to the series. The voice acting and all that is. I don't remember if the SNES one had all the same voice.
It has Cowabunga.
I thought it had some, but I don't know if it had all of them. That
it's got some.
Yeah.
It has some comic book villains, like Slash is in there, which is always one of my favorite back in the day because I used to actually read the comics.
Turtles in Time didn't it add Toka and Razor from the second
I think they're in there too. Yeah,
I thought they were
totally.
Which is funny because I don't know if they were ever represented hardly anywhere else.
I think they were just in the movies
because they were in the second movie and then they kind of forgotten about. They just kind of for whatever reason the second movie they brought those in instead of using Rocksteady and Bebop, right?
Well, Rocksteady and Bebop were so played out.
Maybe. But yeah, so they created these new characters no one had ever heard of. I think as a kid I was disappointed they didn't use Rocksteady and Bebop.
Were you though? Because I loved those two.
I was fine with them, but I think I was just a little disappointed that they didn't use stuff from the cartoon. And
I think it was because the turtle reminded me of Slash from the comic books,
Maybe.
so I was like super into it.
Maybe.
Although, like, he's played basically as like a goofball character in the show,
I think
in the movie.
I think I was disappointed that they were like babies and stuff. Whereas Rocksteady and Bebop had personality, right? They were kind of amusing to watch.
They were gangsters.
They was funny how they were so serious until they weren't, and then they were getting beaten the snot out every time.
Yeah, I think the problem with Bebop and Rocksteady for me is that they were always played like kind of as a joke and kind of just as like cannon fodder for the turtles. Yeah. That I could never see them as like a threat anymore.
Fair enough. Where it's
like, okay, you got two new guys, they fight the turtles, they whoop their ass, they have to run away, like, and they looked cool.
Yeah,
I mean, everything in the original Turtles movies looked awesome. The costumes.
Yeah, the first two.
Actually, the third one has good costumes.
I guess they hadn't ruined them yet until that was it was either pre or a side thing from like the music show and all that crazy stuff. Oh yeah,
the music show is dog shit. I actually went to one of those as a kid. It's bad. But like I even had I recently went back and watched the third movie, and my wife was in the room with me at the time. She's like, "Man, that's really good CG for the '90s," and I'm like, "No, this is like costume."
Yeah, I actually saw 3 in the theaters.
So did I.
And I was like one of the few people I think in my age range still seeing it, and just at that level where I was just cringing a little bit, but I still had to go see it.
See, no, like for some reason I remember hating 3 as a kid because I saw it in theaters and I didn't like it at all.
Yeah,
but I went back and watched it. I'm like, it's a fine movie for what it is. I mean, as like a generic crappy Turtles movie, it was fine.
I just think it wasn't written well. Like I said, I think the effects and stuff are probably better. The story, I think, is just kind of garbage.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as good as the original 2.
Yes.
And they basically stopped the Turtles movies afterwards. So say what you will about it.
And I was a kid who was unambiguously happy about Vanilla Ice in the second movie.
It was awesome.
So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Go Ninja Go is just the best movie thing ever. It's the greatest.
Yes.
But otherwise, yeah, Turtles in Time, like, buy it. I mean,
you've played it already, right? If you're listening to this,
I can't imagine anyone has not played it. And if you haven't, what are you doing here? Like, and I think it's on the Cowabunga collection coming out too. So
yeah, I believe so.
If it hasn't already been released, I'm still waiting for the physical copy to come in. So
yeah,
we're gonna play it again.
Yeah,
it's a great 2-player game.
Yeah, I need to try that new game out, but I'm hoping I can play it. It'd be nice if they bug fixed some of what you hear about where people just spam the supers and just
for which one
for the Cowabunga collection, the new one.
Oh yeah,
the remaster thing which has like new character.
I don't think they're fixing anything.
Well, that's what I'm afraid of because it sounds like you can. I mean, you have to play through it and just say I'm not going to do the super cheap spamming supers thing.
Yeah, I mean whatever.
To actually enjoy the game.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's Turtles in Time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we could talk about some Final Fight. We could talk about.
Yeah, Final Fight for me. If you really want to get into it, I guess like we have time.
Yeah.
There's 4 Final Fight games on the Super Nintendo. We weren't originally going to talk about them, but honestly, going back, there's not really much to talk about when you're talking about them.
Yeah, Final Fight was a great game in the arcade. Like it was a trend.
Game's fun as hell.
It was a trend setter in the arcade. You had Double Dragon before that. You had some beat 'em ups, but not a lot. you started to get more games around that era, and Final Fight, I think, was one of the first ones that showed how a real modern beat 'em up should look.
And there's tons of weapons. I remember, like, the arcade's great.
The music and the sound effects and everything is just so crisp, so great. The combat system's super basic. You know,
it's punch kick or just it's punch jump, really.
But it's fun. You know, and the bosses are entertaining. The characters are cool. You know, Hagar's awesome. Yeah. I loved playing Hagar.
Suplexes.
You know, grab someone, walk with them, pick them up. Yeah, flying pile driver shit.
Yeah, I mean, that was like it's straight out like a Zangief thrown into a beat 'em up game. It was wonderful.
And then later they brought Hagar into the Street Fighter game so you could fight against Zangief.
Did they really?
They have basically the same moveset.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, just Hagar's basically a nerfed Zangief, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Final Fight 1, I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't date back very well. I mean, it looks good. It sounds good.
Wasn't it a release title for the SNES?
I don't remember.
It was either a release title or it was right after. It was one of those, like, rush it out before we figured out how to program, make better use of the space on the cartridges and all that stuff.
I just know it is not as good as the arcade. I mean, there are, like, a tenth of the amount of weapons in the home port.
Yeah, I mean, you could at least say that it plays well. You know, it doesn't lag a ton. I mean,
it's competent.
It's competent. I mean, you for some reason they couldn't fit all three main characters, so you had to buy one game that had Cody and Hagar, or one game that had a Guy and Hagar. Which I guess you can't play all three at once, so that's fine, I guess. But it's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird that they clearly could program that many characters. They did it with the later games, but they hadn't figured out how to utilize the console that well yet.
Yeah, one for me is just so basic. Like I said, it looks and sounds good, but the enemies deal so much damage. You have limited continues, limited lives.
Yeah,
it is brutal trying to make it through that game.
Yeah, you can play it just to have fun, just to beat stuff up, or you can play it, conserving your energy, using the most cheesy moves, and
yeah, it's like set the difficulty as low as you can and just try to make it somewhere in that game.
Yeah,
because the enemies have crazy priority. They move around a lot. Like, they're hard to just lock down sometimes.
Yeah, you have those guys that dive at you, the guys that jump at you with the knives out, and so you just have to be not there and then get them from behind or whatever.
Yeah, and it's one player, which also, like, I always hate that at beat 'em up games.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they're best spent with other people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the biggest sin of that first one.
It is.
And they clearly, both other games had 2-player modes, as I recall. And and
except for Final Fight Guy, that also is...
Well, they're both the first game, basically, right? And clearly, the Genesis already had Streets of Rage out at that time, I believe, long since.
Oh, God, I don't know.
I'd have to check the years, but I think the Genesis had been out for 2-3 years at that point already, because obviously it was out before the SNES was. So yeah, I mean, there's no excuse. I mean, it was there. Here we have Streets of Rage 2.
Yeah.
Or we also have a Streets of Rage game, but they did a really kind of piss poor job of it.
Yeah. the original Final Fight on Super Nintendo does not hold up for me.
I'd rather play Final Fight on the Nintendo. Mighty Final Fight.
Oh yeah, Mighty Final Fight. Yeah, that's fun.
I remember renting that as a kid and enjoying it.
Yeah. That's a good game. I don't know. For the original Final Fight on Super Nintendo, I give it like a 2.5. Yeah. Maybe a 3, but it is it's
pretty average.
Again, it's another average game.
Yep.
Final Fight 2 did open up quite a few things. I mean, you have 2-player, it plays a little bit better.
Yeah.
It's easier to get through. It feels a little bit more crisper, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I have a soft spot for Final Fight 1, just the storyline, the levels, and everything.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like 2 and 3 are technically better games.
They definitely are.
They definitely are.
Definitely.
But they I still don't think they entertain me as much as the arcade original does.
The arcade original is top tier.
Yeah.
And they never replicated that in the home.
Yeah, the 2 and 3 technically are as good maybe as the arcade, but they just aren't as fun to me.
And neither one are as good as Streets of Rage 2. So
no, not even close. Before we get
into that argument.
Yeah. Yeah, they that was their Nintendo's answer, but it wasn't really a very good answer. Their real answer should have been Turtles in Time.
Yeah. I mean, the first... Actually, all the Final Fight games on Super Nintendo are just, like, the most generic beat-em-up.
Yep.
Other than the fact that, like, they look good and they're slightly polished, but, like, that's about it.
3 especially, I got kind of bored.
3 is a boring game.
Yeah.
It goes on forever.
It's on too long. The enemies are so generic.
And they're not hard.
There's not that much strategy. Yeah.
No, it's not a hard game at all. You have a refillable special meter.
Yeah.
You have cool special moves that, like, they look sweet, but, like...
Yeah.
I don't know. You just find yourself spamming it constantly because why not?
3 is kind of an okay fighting engine in search of inspiration, like an inspiring game to put in it. You know?
Yeah, like it looks very good. It
Yes.
sounds very good. It's just something is missing in the gameplay to, I don't know, put it like top tier.
And it's weird because Final Fight is a series, is kind of part of the Street Fighter universe, right? It was originally supposed to be a Street Fighter game, more or less. And they later brought those characters into the Street Fighter universe, but the characters in those 2 Super Nintendo sequels, I don't think showed up anywhere else.
I'm trying to remember. Did Guy show up in like King of Fighters or something? I thought he was in something else.
He's been in a bunch of the Street Fighter stuff, like Street Fighter Alpha. He was in,
Okay.
you know. And so, like I said, as
I
far
get
as
them all confused. I'm not a fighting fan, by the way.
yeah, I mean, Street Fighter Alpha 1 had, let's see which one. I can't remember which ones they were in, but he was in Alpha 2 at least, and Cody was in Alpha 3, I think. Hagar was in, was it Marvel vs. Capcom? One of those that they brought him in. And so they're officially part of that same universe. And so they have so many characters to pull from in the Final Fight universe, the Street Fighter, you know, all this other stuff, which, you know, they're not deep characters, but they're interesting. The ones in 2 and 3 are just not really that interesting. They're just kind of phone-in characters.
What was the other guy in 3? The guy with the, like, he's really tall, has like spiky blonde hair.
Yeah, the spiky blonde hair guy with the wife beater shirt, you know, sorry for the term, and the, what do you have, like spike goggles or something?
It's not Cody Guy. It's
I don't even remember his name. And then you had the ninja lady in that one, I think, a guy's sister, cousin, whatever she was.
I don't even remember.
But one of them had the police woman. That was 2, wasn't it? I think one of them had the police woman, and the other had the ninja woman. I forget. I always forget. I always get them confused.
Yeah, I did not play these in anticipation for this particular episode, but like
that's how generic they feel. They don't
right. I didn't want to go back and play them anyway. I know like 3 is probably the most fresh on my mind. I just remember being bored as hell of that game.
Yeah, we beat it, but
I didn't gain anything from it other than the fact that I lost a lot of money out of my pocket buying the damn thing.
Yep. But that's Final Fight. You got to talk about it. You know, it's for a while. I think they wanted to make that the Super Nintendo Premier fighting series. And,
and I don't know if Final Fight CD, if that's better.
I think it is.
Is it more arcadey or is it?
I think it's like 90% of the way to the arcade.
Okay.
It's definitely not 100%, but I think it's the best you got from those old consoles.
Yeah. But then again, you would have had to have a Sega CD back in the day. And
yes.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That'll be its own episode at some point.
Yep.
But yeah, no, as far as Final Fight 2 and 3, having not played these games in a while, I think I could easily give Final Fight 2 a 3.5, because I remember, it is a good game. It's enjoyable. It's 2-player. It's a nice experience. Final Fight 3, I think I give like 3.75, and I never do that kind of stuff.
I can't give it a 4.
I can't give it a 4
it's
either.
It's not fun enough to give it a 4. Yeah.
But I don't think it's average enough to be in a 3.5, even though 3.5 is still a good game.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like in that weird mid-range.
Yeah. I
don't know. Like I typically don't like doing that, but
yeah, it's kind of hovering around there. It's a stronger 3.5 than 2.
Yeah.
But that's not saying much.
No. It's a little bit better.
Yep.
Not great.
Yep.
Very expensive. Not like that matters in the price or in the rating, but
you definitely emulate that one probably, and don't, unless you really want to collect it. It's
it's like $200 now,
Yeah.
so like I would not recommend picking it up for $200 unless you're looking for a complete set.
Yeah.
If you're just looking for like the best of the console, pick up Turtles in Time.
Yep.
And probably the game we're going to talk about next, unless Dave has something else.
No, I think so. Let's talk about King of Dragons.
Or also Knights of the Round, by the way.
Yeah.
That game is probably better than Final Fight 3. Just saying.
Yeah, so Capcom, in the arcade, they made so many beat 'em ups.
Yes.
Their CPS 2, CPS 3, some of that hardware, especially the early CPS 2 stuff. You had Captain Commando, you had King of Dragons, you had so many, just some of them maybe ran together a little. King of Dragons was one of the more interesting ones.
It's definitely a different style of beat 'em up than anything else we've talked about, and almost anything else that I've played.
Yeah, and I think, as I recall, I want to say they had a couple of similar games that are kind of D&D-ish games in the arcade. I think there was another one, and I'm completely missing. I can't remember if it was also called King of Dragons or if it was different, and it was just slightly different in the arcade. But they were similar game. There's a few games like that run together in my head that have multiple, 4 or 5 characters and different styles of fighting.
I thought King of Dragons, isn't that a direct arcade port?
I don't think it's a direct arcade port. I mean,
Okay.
I think it wanted to be, but I don't. You'll notice the difference.
Well, right. I'm saying
yeah.
like as far as like play style wise, I think it's.
I think it's one of
pretty
those.
close, isn't it?
I think it's.
I can't remember. I thought I played King of Dragons in the arcade, but it's been a while.
I think in the arcade it was quite a bit more robust, but I mean they're both fun. It's one of the better Capcom ports. You know, Capcom didn't always have the best SNES ports, right?
No, like Captain Commando looks like ass. It plays
Yes.
fine, but it looks kind of like ass.
Yeah, so I mean, King of Dragons is pretty cool. It's got 5 characters. You know, they're basic D&D types. You got your fighter, you got your cleric, you got your dwarf, your elf, and your wizard.
Yes, all the good ones.
Yeah, but they have a surprising variety. You know, some of them hit harder than others. Some of them, you know, like the cleric's the biggest defensive one. The fighter is probably the most aggressive, fast attacker. The elf has the most range, but you know, hits the weakest and folds up like a wet paper bag when you hit it.
Hey, if you want to play far away and just learn the game, the elf is a great place to start.
Yeah, I mean it's good. You can stay away from enemies a lot. The wizard has decent range and has some interesting spells, but is also kind of wimpy.
And the dwarf spells are like they do cost HP, so you kind of have to deal with that.
Yeah, and the dwarf's kind of this weird middle ground.
He doesn't feel like a dwarf. He feels more like a glass cannon-y. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. But, you know, you can play 2-player, which is great on the SNES.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's worth playing 2-player. I think it's a little harder to beat it to 1-player, as I recall.
I would say so. I don't think there's any detriment to playing in 2-player.
Yeah.
That I can recall.
And it's neat. It's got some nice RPG elements. You know, as you go, your characters kind of level up. And I think not only does it just increase your stats, but I think some characters, like the wizard, I think gets like a multi-hit attack with their higher staffs and stuff. So it's, you know, it's like I said, I think the arcade goes a step even beyond that, but it's a pretty good effort for a Capcom arcade port.
Yeah, you beat up bosses, you gain like level or attack or shield upgrades. There are even attack or shield upgrades hidden throughout some of the levels too, so try not to miss those.
Yep.
I think there's 1-ups too also hidden some levels, so I just remember this game is very long for a beat 'em up. Like there are like 14 levels or something.
Yes, it's not like Magic Sword long.
No,
but it's relatively long.
And like a lot of the levels are very simple, like almost boss rushy types, where there's not that many henchmen to beat, and there's just tons of bosses. I think they're all different from what I can recall.
Yeah, I mean, you got your dragons, your ogres, you know,
minotaurs,
and things like that.
They look pretty sweet. They're huge.
Yeah, they're huge sprites. Interesting attack patterns. You know, some of them it's nice to have like a fighter type who can do damage, and maybe a wizard or elf type or somebody that can spam more magic. And, you know, on some of the bosses.
Sit back and actually do something while your aggro melee is off dying, basically.
Yes.
So the game it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Like it is not an easy game. You don't get like attack combos, so the attacking is quite different than a normal beat 'em up game.
Yeah.
Most of the enemies take a hit or two, but again, like I think the only buttons in the game is basically jump, attack, and magic.
Yeah, it's one of those where you kind of have I think you have a few little minor variety in, you know, types of attacks, you know, up and down and stuff, but not much. I don't think there was.
It's basically attack and jump attack.
Well, yeah, but
that's all you get.
I'm trying to remember.
I don't think there's anything else.
It's been a little bit since we played all, but you have variety in some of the characters. Like the elf can, you know, is shooting arrows all the time.
Yeah,
and the wizard has like a little fireball, as I recall, that goes like a little ways.
The wizard was hard.
Yeah, the wizard was kind of in that weird place where it wasn't quite fast enough to stay out of range, but it didn't do so much damage to keep things away from it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to like justify bringing it into your party.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure the magic is great against some bosses or something, but
you have to have one person that's like really good at like I said, a fighter or something to deal with most of the things, and then you bring the wizard along to smash the bosses a little more. But it's got some variety. It's got some replayability by picking who you want to pick.
Yeah, each character feels different to play, so like I'd recommend just trying all of them and seeing what happens. And
And there's like a shield blocking thing for the people who have, I think it's the fighter and the cleric and I think the dwarf who have a shield.
I always find that very hard to pull off though.
Yeah, you have to push the button and hold the button, I believe, and then you just keep your shield up.
I mean, maybe you can get really good at it and figure it out. For me, like it just I never used it. Couldn't really figure it out, but
yeah.
But yeah, all the characters felt great. The game itself it plays differently than other beat 'em ups, but it feels very crisp. The gameplay is good.
Yep.
The music is pretty good. It wasn't like all time great, but not bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you know, it's a solid CPS. I believe it's a CPS2 game. It's probably one of the best. It might even be the best of Capcom's beat 'em ups in that era.
Yeah,
and I think it's quite possibly Capcom's best arcade port on the SNES. I can't think of one that I enjoy better. And, Knights of the Round was okay, but it was definitely worse.
yeah.
Captain
A lot of
Commando
people
was
love
definitely
Knights of the
worse.
Round, but like I don't know.
Knights of the Round is great in the arcade, but it's a flawed NES port or SNES port.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all right. I mean, I don't know.
I mean Capcom put out a lot of stuff on the SNES, but they didn't always bring their A game.
No.
I think King
A
of
lot of the
Dragons
ports are not very good.
King of Dragons might be the best they did. Porting a game over.
Yeah, I do remember. I love King of Dragons. It's a game worth picking up. I have no idea how much it goes for nowadays, but like, I know when I was playing it before, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's wonderful 2-player experience. It's a very fast paced game. Even though there's like 14 levels, you get through a playthrough in like 45 minutes. I remember one day, I think we all beat it together. I don't know if it was me, you, and Kyle or something, but we all sat down and we got through it. I mean, it took us a few tries, but I mean, it's very hard. The bosses are awesome. I don't know. I actually did a standalone review of this on the channel, and I can't remember the rating I gave it. I might have given it a 4.5.
I think a 4 is fair. You could maybe give it a 4.5.
Like, the graphics are not like all-time great. They're not like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or even like Final Fight 3 graphical wise. But I mean, the gameplay is so good in its own weird way.
And there's really
that I might have went higher.
There's nothing bad about it really, other than I don't even think it really dragged on that much despite having such long levels.
It doesn't drag on. It just gets very hard.
It just gets very hard, and the bosses, like I said, are strong, are a high point.
Yeah.
Most beat 'em ups of this type don't have such a variety of interesting bosses.
And the bosses are very hard. Your character does take a lot of damage, at least starting out.
Yeah, I think I compare it unfavorably against like the Dungeons and Dragons games, but those didn't come onto the NES or to the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, those never got ported.
Those, so for what they were able to do on the SNES, you couldn't do much better than this.
Yeah, for the type of game that it is.
4.5 is probably pretty fair,
Yeah. Again, I can't remember what I gave it in my original rating, but like, I don't know. I love the game. I think it's definitely worth picking up for whatever price it currently is.
Yeah. But if you're looking for other beat 'em ups to fill up on, try look at some of the other Capcom games, look at look at Knights of the Round, look at Captain Commando.
Oh, what's funny is Capcom beat 'em ups are like getting expensive, and they always kind of have been. I don't know what the deal with that was, if they just didn't come out of,
And there was a bunch of other ones, you get like Three Wonders, you get Nemo, Mega Twins, things like that, some of them came over, some of them didn't. I don't think they reported the Arcade Willow.
No.
Yeah, there's so many good games on the Capcom system, and they struggled to bring them all over.
Yeah, if you can find most of them, like, they're mostly decent.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, Turtles in Time is like $60. It's still the best one.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to find than a lot of these Capcom games. So that's the one to pick up, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I think we covered a pretty good... We'll have to maybe go over some detail on some of these other ones in a future thing, but...
Yeah, I mean, we got through maybe half of the beat-em-ups in Super. There are a lot of them that, like... Hey, punk, are you tough enough? And this is a lot of these, like, very generic, crappy ones that we just didn't bother covering. I think we covered most of the good ones, but there are Knights of the Round, there's Captain Commando. There's a couple on Super Famicom that are pretty good.
Yep.
And then there's a lot on Super Famicom that never made it over, like the Sailor Moon series, for example. Which, I mean, it's as generic and crappy as it can get, but that's Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
There was a lot of... I don't think there was like a DBZ beat brawler.
No.
They were all like one-on-one fighters.
It would have made the most sense. I don't know why they've literally never made one.
Yeah, I mean, most of the ones... You'd have a Dragon Ball game where you're going through the whole thing, and it would be a card battle game, right? Not a brawler. I mean, especially on the NES.
The Legend of the Super Saiyan. I kind of love that game. We should talk about it sometime.
Yeah.
We're going to have a Dragon Ball episode.
That'd be fun.
But Dave's got to get through the manga, and there's a shit ton of games to play for that.
Yeah, the Dragon Ball Super. I'm pretty good caught up on all the rest of the mangas.
But yeah, like I said, we covered about half today. We'll cover the other half sometime down the road. But we got some Halloween stuff coming up, so look out for that. Alrighty, Dave.
Hey, have a good one.
Let's do it.